Is it true that appointing a business leader as Canada's next ambassador to the United States marks a deliberate shift away from traditional diplomacy toward a harder-edged strategy centered on economic statecraft and geopolitical power? Yes, largely true. Appointing a senior business leader as Canada's next ambassador to the United States signals a deliberate tilt toward economic diplomacy and geopolitical statecraft. It reflects the practical reality that Canada-United States relations are now shaped less by protocol and more by tariffs, industrial policy, supply chain security, investment flows, and strategic bargaining. The person being appointed is Mark Wiseman. He is best known as a former president and CEO of CPP Investments and as a former senior managing director at BlackRock, where he held senior global investment leadership roles. His career is rooted in large-scale cross-border finance, regulatory and political risk navigation, and high-stakes negotiation with major institutions, which maps closely onto the pressures now defining Canada's relationship with Washington. For decades, the Washington job was typically led by career diplomats whose core strengths were relationship management, institutional continuity, and political navigation. Choosing a business leader signals that Ottawa is prioritizing an ambassador who can operate as an economic defender and strategic negotiator, because many of the most consequential disputes now take the form of trade friction, subsidy competition, procurement rules, and investment leverage rather than classic state-to-state protocol issues. The United States and many allies increasingly use economic tools to pursue foreign policy objectives, including trade policy, sanctions, subsidies, and regulatory leverage. In that environment, the embassy in Washington becomes a front line for economic statecraft, and appointing a business leader is consistent with treating the post as a high-pressure portfolio focused on market access, competitiveness, and risk management. Economic diplomacy and geopolitics have merged because supply chains in areas like energy, critical minerals, advanced manufacturing, and infrastructure investment are increasingly treated as strategic assets. A business leader with deep experience in global investment and political risk is positioned to argue for Canada in terms Washington responds to: mutual dependence, costs of disruption, and strategic reliability. This is diplomacy, but it is diplomacy practiced through economic leverage and security-linked trade-offs. This does not mean traditional diplomacy is being abandoned. The embassy still requires political access, coalition building, and careful relationship management, and career diplomats remain essential throughout the mission. The signal is about priority and emphasis. Canada is treating its most important bilateral post as a seat of economic strategy and geopolitical negotiation, not mainly ceremonial representation. The appointment of Mark Wiseman is a strong indicator that Canada expects its Washington ambassador to operate as a senior economic statecraft practitioner in a more transactional, geopolitically charged U.S. environment. In today's Canada-United States relationship, diplomacy is increasingly measured by whether you can protect market access, manage trade coercion, secure supply chains, and translate interdependence into leverage. The Prime Minister of Canada is cited for the official backgrounder confirming the appointment and providing the government's framing of the decision. Reuters is cited for independent reporting on the appointment and its emphasis on trade-focused priorities. Global Affairs Canada is cited to ground the discussion in the official description of Canada-United States relations. The Council on Foreign Relations is cited to define economic statecraft and explain its role in modern diplomacy and state strategy. BlackRock is cited to document Mark Wiseman's senior investment leadership role and professional background. For more fact-based content about Canadian politics, democratic health, economic trends, and rhetorical analysis, the Facts for Canadians platforms offer ongoing resources and educational material. These outlets aim to strengthen public understanding, improve media literacy, and support evidence-based democratic engagement.